What's up? Hey, okay, everything's on. Just doing one stream today, trying to keep up with my daily streams. Today I'm going to talk about staging and using staging sites. I'm going to try to make this a really quick video. I always kind of say that, and the video always turns into a 10-minute video when I originally intended it to be 3, but let's just go for it. Okay, so my relationship with staging has been a fairly long one. I've been doing development as a pro for about 15 years now, and back in the old days, you would just kind of build your site in a flat file system in HTML and CSS on your computer, open it in a browser on your computer, and then you would upload that to your ISP's server. That is totally far gone. We're super separated from that, almost to the point where it's irrelevant to talk about. Then later what happened is we would start working with CMSs. For me specifically, WordPress, and then some of my own custom CMSs, but for the most part WordPress was a big game changer. So for WordPress, it required you to execute PHP actions. Now PHP is executed on a server, so it takes the kind of framework that a server does in order for it to work correctly. You can't really do it on a local system out of the box, and that's kind of different from JavaScript, which can execute right on your page. So for PHP and WordPress and some other content management systems, you kind of needed to have a solution where you could build your site on your computer if, for example, the internet went down or the power went down. Back in, like, say, the super late 90s to the early 2000s, you'd be doing this type of thing. WordPress came along in the early 2000s, so you would have a WordPress site up on the internet, and the problem back then was that internet connections were not so fast, so you had to wait if you were developing live on a WordPress site that was live. So what a lot of devs did around that time, around the mid-2000s, you would actually download the site and set up some type of virtual desktop server where you could actually run the site locally on your own computer as if it was connected to the internet, even though it's not. A side advantage of that type of development was that you did not need the internet. And back then, the internet was not quite as much of a given as it is now. Hard to find a home without internet these days, where in the mid-2000s, there were still a few. That being said, a lot of devs are still doing that. And until I'd say maybe like 3 years ago, that was more my process as well. But I'm more at this point using staging sites, not so much on my own computer, but on my hosting provider. I'm going to go through some of the reasons why I've kind of made that transition and talk about why I think it's better to use a hosting staging site than it is to do it locally. The first one is launching, and mainly specifically launching in the context of debugging. So when you create a site and you push it live, you have something called post-launch, and that's the time when the site's live and you scramble real quick to make sure that everything worked the same way that it did on the live site or on the staging site, whether it be whether it be on a hosting server or stored locally on your computer. You have to kind of run through this process. Now for me, with the size of the sites I do, it's faster to just have it online. And typically, if you're working with an online host provider staging setup, things tend to go a little bit smoother when you push the site live. There's still going to be a couple little glitches depending on your configuration, but in general, I'd say it's safe to say that it goes a little bit quicker. The second advantage that I can think of is that staging sites being live on a hosting provider ultimately means that it's out of your control whether or not that site is saved or not. So ultimately, you don't ever have to worry about backing it up. Storing things in your home or in your office, there is a bit of volatility there to the point where very few people are doing it. Very sensitive information tends to be on a cloud. And by sensitive, I don't mean information that needs to be secure. I mean information that can't be lost, that it's very important that the information is not lost. And when that's the case, I try to use a cloud as much as possible. Websites, being that they're relatively small, they really do well with a cloud-based system. So that is my second reason. So the first reason was migration, compatibility, launching is easier. The second reason is that you don't have to back up your site. The third reason, and this is a little bit less of an important one, is I find that the experience online tends to be similar to what the user faces. So if you're having a difficult time loading a page while you're editing it, that's very much an indicator that the site needs to be slimmed down in the first place. And furthermore, along with slimness, we're kind of in the age of mobile. So a lot of people are looking at your site through a cellular service internet connection. And in that case, your site has to be extremely slim and fast. It has to be a very small site when you're thinking in a context of file size. So because of that, I find that it makes more sense to use an online staging platform because all of your files need to be small in the first place. Where before, in the mid-2000s, sites were actually starting to get incredibly big. And before mobile sites were kind of a thing, everyone was using hardwired internet connections in their home offices or their home computers or their work offices. And connections in general are much faster, where now as a dev we have to worry a lot more about the people who are looking at content on their phone. And really, we're kind of living in a mobile-first ecosystem. So anything that kind of works towards the mobile-first kind of concept is kind of the direction I go. Okay, so let's just review those three reasons and we'll get out of here. The first reason is that staging online offers less bugs in post-launch or launch, however you want to think of it. The second reason is that you don't have to worry about losing your files. And the third reason is that you're going to be straight in line to make a faster site, and also your sites don't have to be as big, so it tends to be faster and it's more effective to work with an online hosting / staging platform. That's all I got so far. If you guys have any reason why or why not you use an online staging platform, please comment below. Let me know what you think. Hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be streaming every day. I don't care if I break my back, I will be streaming. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to some interesting dialogue in the comments. I will check you guys later.